Alright, so as my opponent brought up was that government inspections were lacking, but government inspections for human safety and for animal safety is brought together by the Animal Welfare Inspection Guide by the United States Department of Agriculture. So dangerous animals require a perimeter fence that is not less than 8 feet high, 3 feet or more in distance from any enclosure housing animals, and a primary enclosure is made of sturdy, durable materials like concrete or glass, or natural barriers at an outdoor facility that is high enough to keep animals and people from entering. And that is also, that goes towards each zoo that is within states for under the AZA also, because the USDA also states that so the federal AWA creates compliance in healthy zoos. Its responsibilities for monitoring compliance with the AWA that rests with the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, which administers the granting of license to zoological facilities, parks, and aquariums via federal veterinarian services, which each U.S. state is assigned a veterinarian that will distribute and oversee these license applications for each zoo that it applies. Also, I want to bring up how the first opponent brought up zoos, how animals, people go there just for entertainment and to watch, but zoos are more than that. They're for research, they're not just commercial displays, they're for educating. Zoo science is contributing basic biological info and technological know-how to the increasing demanding task of wildlife care in constricted habitats. Uniquely, zoo conservation action bends recreational dollars to conservation purposes, stated by author Brian Norton, The Ethics on the Ark. So like instead of this money going towards building new zoos, it'll go towards research for these animals to better for their welfare. So also I would like to bring up how animal welfare is also it's recorded sufficiently through the USDA, and it's recorded at least once a year for inspections through the Secretary of Agriculture or someone that she assigns to go and check. But as does or the Association of Zoos and Aquariums Inspection Guide states that a welfare assessment framework should consider elements such as physical health, nutritional state, environmental utilization, behavior, and mental domains. Note, extreme conditions of negative welfare should be addressed immediately and discussed. So without research, we wouldn't be able to. Conservation cannot occur in the absence of knowledge, so without research we wouldn't know what these animals need in order to survive in their habitat that was probably once that was destroyed by most likely humans and or encroachment and just humans. The most serious threat to the well-being of many wild creatures is that they will be ignored, condemned by the growing masses of humanity to the same closets of irrelevance, such as silent films and tribolites, which is an ancient extinct fossil in the prehistoric age, also stated by Brian Norton. Also, I'd like to bring up that so our first opponent brought up about diseases, how that spreads. So all zoos go through precautionaries, and from the smallest to the largest, they will be involved in some stage in one or more areas of preventive medicine, ranging from basic health checks to quarantine procedures, vaccinations, foot, beak, and dental care, and post-mortem examinations, stated by the Zoo Animals Behavior Management and Welfare by Oxford University. Also, the surplus of the animals leads to a moral question, which is to cull or not to cull. And culling is basically putting the animal down before it has a life to live, because then if it grows, so culling kills animals, but also not culling kills animals. Because if you don't cull the animal, it'll create less supplies for other animals to be able to survive. And also, she brought up about wildlife preservation and rehabilitation. So wildlife relies on humans to survive. Since we destroy their land and have basically boarded them in 1947, Florida's Everglades National Parks was established to protect the first assemblage of large wading birds of the continent. Hunting encroachment was stopped. Nevertheless, by 1989, the population of these birds had declined by 90%. We manned the borders, but we failed to care for its insides and its contents. Such tragedies are happening in Africa and natural preserves, like she brought up with the elephants. These elephants migrate 200 miles to find water, and they can't find water near where they live because the natural habitats and wildlife preserves in Africa, the rivers have dried up, and now they have to travel hundreds of miles and dangerous in order to just find water. And sometimes they can't even find a river, so they have to they break apart a tree that they eat in order to gather water. Also, zoos are important for important for preservation because animal care and management at the National Zoo states that modern zoos have become responsive to the unprecedented declines in wildlife population and habitat destruction by promoting captive breeding programs, interinstitutional cooperation, and off-site conservation. Zoos have become complex structures that place great demands on leadership and communications among its management, staff, and also the general public.